Morning, folks. We should be starting in just 1 second, around 9. Okay. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I am Max Wolf. I'm the Chamber's Public Policy Manager, and we are joined by our partners with the town of Needham to introduce Envision Needham, a project where the city will be transforming Needham Center by repurposing space along Great Plain Ave. Today, you'll hear from designers who will show you their vision and elicit feedback and ideas for this transformation ahead of a pilot. Presenting today will be Paris Lustig, a Needham DPW Director, Karen Fitzgerald, Landscape Architecture Practice Lead at Tool Design, Cassandra Thompson, a Brand Manager at Apex Companies, and now I will hand it off to Margot Spiller, Principal at Apex Companies. Thank you.
Hello, sorry, my computer was freezing. Let me share my screen. Okay. Can everyone see that okay? All right, thank you so much for joining us this morning. As Max mentioned, we're here to talk about the Envision Needham Center project. All right, just a quick agenda of what we're going to be speaking about today. We're just introducing the presenters here with you today and have a little icebreaker to get people engaged. Overview of the project, what the project limits are and current conditions in the center, what the project objectives are and who is involved in the team. Give you a sense of the project milestones and our timeline, and talking through what this project will mean for the business community in Needham, looking at best practices and some data on the revitalization opportunities here. We'll just go through the process that we are following to develop a design, and then go through next steps. So here speaking with you today, we have Karis, who is the Director of Public Works at Needham, as well as myself, the project manager on the design team, and joined with Karen Fitzgerald from Tool Design, who's our landscape architecture lead, as well as Cassandra Thompson, who's leading communications. With that, I will see if Karis wants to take it over to have a quick introduction before we get into the polls.
Thank you. So I just wanted to give a quick overview of this project, kind of the why we're doing this project. For those in Needham Town Center, you know that several years ago, the town embarked on a redesign process for the entire downtown, and it was broken up into multiple phases. We executed phase 1 of that project, which is Great Plain Avenue from Highland and Dedham all the way to Chapel Street. And that was a redesign primarily of the intersections that were there, upgrading the signals. For those who were here at the time, the downtown had a lot more congestion as far as that signalization and coordination goes. And so that was the main goal of that first project. The objectives of this project, when it started a little over a decade ago, were really to fix the traffic coordination in the downtown, maintain parking, and enhance beautification. We went in 2020, 2021, back to the select board to look at phase 2, which would have been redoing the rest of Great Plain Avenue to the limits of this project, which are between Linden and Warren. And what we got then was a lot of feedback that the world had really changed in the past 10 years and that they were looking for something different from their downtown. And I think one of the largest components of this was really COVID and how we utilized outdoor spaces during the pandemic. So people were looking for more outdoor dining, larger pedestrian spaces, and parking spots, which at the time when this project was originally conceived were sacrosanct, were taken because we ended up doing parklets and we didn't see massive congestion or issues with our downtown. So the entire project basically got kind of re-established at that point. And we ended up doing another outsource and really thought, okay, we're going to relook at this entire corridor. So the scope of this particular project is Great Plain Ave only, from the Warren area to the Linden area. Our goal is to try to be as terms of disruption goes, as limited in disruption as possible, which is why we decided to do the entire one street and one entire corridor as one project, as opposed to doing little pieces of other streets and tightening the project up, maybe around certain businesses and not others. We are hoping that this particular project and then another project that will be happening on Highland Avenue will really be the two main disruptions that you have in the downtown over the next 15 years. And so that our goal is to try to lump these projects in as much as possible, because we know that the construction time is one of the more complicated times. I think the objective of this meeting is really to get feedback. We have a citizen committee that is working on this, and we are looking for, I believe, one more member, ideally of, I think, a business owner and a business, someone who runs a business in the downtown, to participate in that process. And we've started getting feedback from the community. We know that there's an impact to the community and what they want to see. And we also know there's an impact to your businesses and what you are looking for in the place where you operate. So the goal for this meeting is really to get your feedback on what you think would be the most beneficial for our downtown.
Thanks, Karis. All right, so before we dive into the project and where we're at, I just want to take a minute to understand how folks on the call are connected to the center. So you can see up at the top, there is a code to join the presentation online. If you can just go to menti.com and input that code, you should be able to respond to this poll question. And you'll see results will start to pop up in real time as people answer.
The link is in the chat if anyone wants to find the link.
Thanks, Max. Got a pretty good mix so far. Give it a few more minutes. We have a few more polling questions after this, so there'll be more opportunities as well. But looks like we have some business owners, both within Needham and adjacent, as well as those shopping and living in Needham. So great to get different perspectives here today. We still have some results coming in. Great. All right, I'll keep it moving. All right. Next question was, what do you love most about the center as it currently is? We really want to make sure that we are embracing and enhancing the parts of Needham that current users really love the most, and think it make it a special place. So want to know what you really appreciate about this area and think makes it unique from other areas. This is an open-ended question. The restaurants, got some great restaurants over there. Town Common, French press. They can take all my money. Okay. Great. This is great feedback. Thank you guys. All right. Space for kids to run, walkability. We're really looking to enhance these attributes. All right, great. All right, thanks for responding to that. So as Karis already touched on, the Envision Needham Center effort is really the culmination of over a decade of studies and assessments, as well as previous construction projects that the town has undertaken to better this section of Great Plain Ave. So this next phase is looking to transform the center to repurpose the public realm and public space we have to better stimulate economic development by creating a space that is vibrant, sustainable, and resilient, and really feels like a true destination that can serve not only the current, but the future residents and visitors of Needham. Project limits quickly. So the limits of this project are focused on Great Plain Ave, extends from Linden Street down to Warren Street. That's about 0.4 of a mile. This segment encompasses the portion of Great Plain Ave right in front of Town Common and Town Hall, between Chestnut and Dedham, as well as the Acgrade MBTA railroad crossing just west of Chestnut Street. You can see from the aerial on either side of the project limits, Great Plain Avenue is just 2 lanes, 1 lane in each direction, but widens to 4 lanes along these few blocks. So just looking at the existing conditions, you can see from these photos, the layout does feel very vehicle centric. And those that are walking, this layout doesn't really encourage people to linger and visit shops that they might not have originally planned on visiting, and doing that impulse shopping. Instead, the traffic is very destination focused. People have one place they want to go, they go there, and then they leave. Or they're just driving through the center and not stopping at all. The recently renovated Town Common, as your answers to the previous poll already have shown, does have the potential to be a true focal point of the center, and a great community space. Right now, though, it is surrounded on 3 sides by this constant vehicular activity that really creates a barrier between that space and the businesses on the other side of Great Plain Ave. So as part of this project, we are really looking to tie these special places together and not have the roadway be this barrier dividing them. This is just another look at the existing conditions right at the Great Plain and Chestnut intersection. You can see most of the public realm is pavement right now, and it feels that way. You can see the Town Common on the left and the businesses on the right, and that narrow sidewalk do feel separated. So we are looking to kind of reimagine the space and have it be, better allocated to all users of the center, not only those driving. right, so with that overarching goal of making the center a more vibrant and people-oriented space, the team identified 3 main objectives to better prioritize all users, particularly those that are looking to enjoy the center as a destination. So first, the improvements being made will improve the safety and mobility for all users, regardless of what travel mode they're using. The number one way to improve safety is to slow vehicles down to a speed that is appropriate for a downtown area, making drivers more aware of their surroundings and other users, and reducing how bad a crash is if one does occur. Wider sidewalks, shorter crossing distances, and dedicated bike facilities also improve the mobility and comfort for those people that aren't in a vehicle. This project will also identify ways to make the center more sustainable and resilient to the impacts of climate change. Most of you folks know about the recent flooding events over the last few years, which really have demonstrated the importance of future-proofing the town's infrastructure against increasingly severe weather events. We can do that by incorporating more greenery, as well as reducing the amount of impermeable space or increasing permeable materials. And those have the dual purpose of also just increasing the aesthetics of the area and being really nice to look at. Finally, to make the center a vibrant destination, we'll focus on beautification and placemaking treatments. That includes seating, public art, and wayfinding. These 3 goals will all work together to make the center that welcoming destination that people want to bring their friends and family to enjoy the shops and restaurants and that open space. So in terms of the team working on this effort, there are several departments within the town that are giving different perspectives to the approach. Includes not only Public Works and the Highway Division, but also the town manager's office. The design team includes members of Apex and Tool Design, which are both local firms that specialize in municipal infrastructure improvements. The town and design team are working closely with that working group of 11 community members that really represent that wide variety of interests and perspectives. And throughout the duration, we are engaging with the community through different types of stakeholder engagement to make sure that the community's priorities are known and incorporated into the design that we're advancing. In terms of project milestones, we are currently in the visioning and conceptual design phase, this first step of the project, where we're identifying that overarching vision, refining the goals of the project, and engaging with the community to understand their priorities and concerns to begin to identify those conceptual alternatives. We are looking at implementing a pilot demonstration, which is a temporary installation of a new layout, which is anticipated to begin in the summer of this year. That allows us to test out those changes before actual construction begins. Once we're able to make those observations during the pilot, those will inform the design and we'll move into that detailed design phase. So again, just this first phase in more detail includes a project branding for the project, community outreach. We're doing a traffic assessment to understand kind of the implications of potentially reducing the number of travel lanes. Really aggregating those best practices that are shown to further the goals of the project, and establishing a cadence for communications with the community. And at the end of this phase, we will have a preferred conceptual design to move forward to future phases. So looking quickly at best practices for our 3 overarching goals. First, we are looking at different treatments to improve safety and mobility. For pedestrians, this includes wide, accessible sidewalks. The pictures on the left are right from Newtonville. We also are looking at dedicated bike facilities, which provide a physical separation between those on bikes and those in vehicles. That could range from flexi posts, which are shown on the upper right, but it could also be a more substantial physical separation, such as vertical granite curbing. with bicyclists either at the sidewalk level or still at the roadway level, but separated by that curb. Sustainability and resilience treatments can be incorporated through more consistent street trees with tree pits under the surface to promote tree health. We're also looking at planted median islands as well as pockets of green space at intersections, as shown on the right. Beautification and placemaking treatments are really a critical way to make a place feel welcoming and special. Luckily, Needham already has some great examples of placemaking right in the center, shown on the right with that Chapel Street mural. Other examples shown here include different types of outdoor seating, whether for dining or for just community gathering, and also having a good wayfinding approach so that people, when they enter the space, know how to get to different places and feel like they know where to go. All right, so what does this mean for the Needham community? These types of projects that look at reallocating public space within a downtown have shown to have very positive impacts for the community. First and foremost, they do support local businesses. Similar projects have shown to have a positive effect on retail sales and tax revenue, with a $3 to $8 average return. You can also see that these types of projects build a better connected community. It encourages people to go downtown more often, not have those destination focused trips, but just say, hey, we have nothing going on. Why don't we stop downtown and walk around? It also, these projects will make the town safer, make the town center safer for all users. Kids that are riding their bikes to go get a snack. And that is an important priority for the community. All right. Looking at some of the statistics on the economic impacts of this project, different types of treatments that have been shown to have positive impacts include bicycle facilities and pedestrian facilities, as well as pedestrian and bike facilities combined. Those have a direct positive correlation with retail and food service sales. Different metrics that we will be looking to measure over the pilot could include number of sales, number of customers, vacancy rates, and that's something we would love to work with the business community on moving forward to see how to measure that and make sure that we're helping you through this process. 2 case studies, one local and one a little further out. This first one is Center Street in West Roxbury. City of Boston recently reduced the number of travel lanes on this corridor to incorporate dedicated bicycle facilities. And they had a pretty robust data tracking system in place after the implementation. They saw that median and speeds were reduced by 6 miles per hour. And importantly, the amount of speeding was reduced by 75%, which is a dramatic statistic. There was a minimal impact on travel time. So a lot of times we hear, well, if we reduce the amount of pavement, people are going to be stuck in traffic and they won't come anymore. So it's nice to see that overall travel time really wasn't affected substantially. And finally, the amount of traffic rerouting in this instance was pretty minimal at about 4%.
Margo, I just want to chime in. We have a question that I think may actually help as we continue. A participant asked to define what a bike facility and a pedestrian facility is.
Sure, absolutely. So by pedestrian facility, the main pedestrian facility is the sidewalk along the corridor, but we're also looking at how pedestrians are accommodated at intersections. So often we see bump outs at intersections or a curve in the curb line so that the crossing distance isn't as long. Pedestrian accommodations can also include the crosswalk type, so making sure that they're highly visible, as well as accommodations to facilitate crossing, so either the signal system or a flashing beacon. For bicycle accommodations, similarly, that can include a dedicated facility along the corridor. That could be in the road, it could be on the sidewalk. There are different types of bicycle facilities that could be incorporated. And we are also looking at making sure that bicycle comfort stays continuous throughout intersections. So having bicycle crossing markings and that sort of thing to make sure that bicyclists can go through the entire project limits safely. All right. The second case study was in California, but you can see the before picture does look pretty similar to the current Needham Center. That was transformed in this case to have a center space that had trees and reallocated some of the parking there. As part of this, sidewalks were widened. Other placemaking treatments included improved lighting. So this project saw a twofold increase in the amount of pedestrians and a 119% increase in revenue downtown. As part of the infrastructure changes, crashes also decreased substantially for those in vehicles as well as pedestrians. All right, so just quickly going through our process for the design. Our first step was looking at existing conditions through traffic studies, looking at crash data, and also being in the field, looking at current opportunities and comparing that to these data-backed best practices. Having various types of outreach with stakeholders as well as the community to gauge priorities, concerns, and opportunities. Based on that feedback, we are identifying design alternatives for further consideration and presenting those alternatives to the public to get additional feedback. We are looking to implement that pilot design to understand how trips and user behaviors change with a change in layout.
I think Margot froze.
I can pull up the slides to Sandra that you want. Does somebody else want to take over?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna pull up the slides.
Okay. Oh, she's back.
Oh, she's back. Okay.
Margot, are you back?
I am back. Sorry about that. My internet connection is spotty here. All right. You see my screen again?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so as part of this effort, we are performing a study on the traffic circulation in and around the center. One thing our team flagged early on is that many of the vehicle trips going through the center are very regional in nature. They're not starting in Needham and they're not ending in Needham. This bar graph on the right shows you that almost over 50% of the trips going through the center during the peak hour is over 8 miles long. If you look at 8 miles on a map, it's, it could be a trip starting in Wellesley and going all the way to Dedham. So, these statistics show that the infrastructure in the center is such that it is accommodating this regional through traffic. And kind of shifting the priorities of the center to better accommodate those that want to visit Needham as their destination, but may just cause this regional traffic to shift to a more appropriate route, whether that be the highway or a different local arterial. So this is one aspect that we are going to be monitoring through the pilot. We do have the capability of modeling how we think trips will be affected by a change in the number of travel lanes in the center. But really the best data we can get is implementing it on a trial basis and see how actual drivers are changing their behavior. So that is what we will be doing over the next year while the pilot is in place. All right. With that, I will shift it to Cassandra to talk about the engagement we've done so far.
Thanks, Margot. Yeah, so a key component of this, arguably the most important components of this, is making certain that we are engaging all stakeholders. So we had our first public outreach event in September. We did a pop-up at the Needham Harvest Fair, and that was a really wonderful opportunity to engage the community. We had multiple boards where we asked people to kind of call out what their concerns were, what their view of what making Needham Center vibrant means. It was very interactive, which is one of our goals. And then recently in February, we actually had a multi-level public outreach event. So we had an open house on a weekend for multiple hours where we provided almost like kind of puzzle pieces for people to kind of design their own streetscape and understand, what happens when we do add more trees and how much space does that take up? And if I want to add a bike lane, what does that look like? As well as walking tours. We had 4 guided tours and then an online version where participants were able to provide observational feedback through a survey. So that online and digital portion lasted the entire month of February. So during the 4 walking tours, we had many people. I know a lot of businesses saw us sort of walking through the corridor, and we received hundreds upon hundreds of survey results and survey moments and sentences of feedback, which were divulging. So what we actually showed here is like a breakdown of categories of comments and call outs from those who participated. And we also pulled some direct comments from participants who called out things that specifically relate to businesses. Overall, we heard consistently a call for more green space, better public spaces, the ability for, individuals or families to actually go down to Needham Center and spend multiple hours there. The question that was sort of consistently brought up was, can Needham Center be like a family destination on a Friday night? And that very much is reflective of our goals with the project. There was an appreciation for and a call for more outdoor seating and outdoor opportunities for businesses to also kind of provide for customers. And we're excited for future events as well. Karen, I'm going to pass it over to Karen, who's going to talk through all kind of design questions we're asking and what things may look like. You're on mute.
There we go. How's that? Yeah. Okay. Good morning, everyone. Thanks, Cassandra. Yeah, so I am leading the landscape architecture urban design portion of the project with Apex. And, we've been looking at a few design alternatives, as Margot mentioned, possibly a lane reduction in those blocks where we have 4 lanes. And this cross-section and image is showing you sort of what we have today. So there are several lanes across Great Plain with a pretty minimal pedestrian sidewalk area on either side. And as you can see, it does sort of create a physical and sort of perceptual barrier between one side of the street and the other. We are proposing, you can flip to the next slide, to reduce some of those travel lanes, retain as much parking as possible, and really increase that public, what we call public realm area, which is sidewalks, trees, possible bike lanes, the lighting, everything from the curb inwards towards the building, or in this case on the park side. Also trying to bring that park green space into the streetscape more, so it really feels like it is a connected element, and it's a very important piece of the center right now. Next slide. So as part of this project, we were able to work with the town and secure a Safe Streets for All grant, SS4A, as we say in the industry. And that will allow us to pilot or test out some of our design ideas within the Great Plains sort of center area. And that will really just include, painting new lines, painting some of the areas that we're gaining space, and using movable things like barriers and planters and flex posts to delineate the new design. So it's all just so what we call temporary movable pieces. And we can really test out sort of our concepts, see how things are working. We'll also be able to change as we are going through the pilot. As it's up, if things aren't working, we'll have the ability to adjust as we go along. We're also really excited to work with the arts community to make this, it will be up for a while, so we'd really love to make the pilot a really beautiful and vibrant space to be in. Yeah, so this is sort of an example that we did in Northampton, albeit a much larger streetscape, but we were able to come in and just paint new bike lanes, paint areas where we were gaining space on the sidewalk side, use planters and barriers to guide the traffic through there. And this was up for a while just to test out how this change would affect both traffic, but also the enjoyment of folks using the downtown. Next slide. Yeah. Oh. So another Mentimeter would love to get your input on what is one result you'd love to see come out of this project. You can type in your responses.
And the link is in the chat as well.
In the chat, same code, it should just come up if you were using it. Or gathering, yes. Yep. Great. Mm-hmm. Perfect. Yeah, great responses. And then this is really important to us, how we as a team can best support you during the pilot. and just as a, I think Margot stated this earlier, but we're planning on getting this in place this summer. Constant, yes. Mhm. Good. Yeah. That's great. And we'd really love to hear from you about the best ways to reach you, whether it's email or, actual paper notices. And this question is, how do you get information on what's going on in town? Sort of related to what I'm asking. What is the best way that you can get information, or we can get you some information? Mm. Right, that's really helpful. And we do have a project site on the town website. And as Margot indicated, we will be taking information all through the pilot in order to track what's happening. So here we have the town website, as I mentioned. Sign up for the QR code to get project information. There'll be future engagement events, and the direct business contact is there at the bottom of the screen. So if you have any questions, let us know.
Yeah. All right, great. With that, we have just going to open it up to Q&A. Either raise your hand, submit it via the Zoom chat, or you can submit questions through the Menti website here.
We also, Margot, we also have some questions that have been coming in through the meeting chat. So I think maybe I'll read some and then you can let us know who's going to answer.
Yeah, perfect.
Beautiful. So somebody asked about, just to clarify the timeline of the project. So if perhaps we could do that with the milestones.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right. So as I mentioned, so we're currently in the visioning and conceptual design phase that started in the winter and is expected to wrap up later this spring. The pilot demonstration, once we do have that preferred conceptual design, the pilot demonstration is anticipated to be implemented in the summer to reflect that layout. We think the summer is a really key time to start the pilot demonstration because it allows us to do the installation when some folks, aren't in town and are on vacation for the summer, and also we don't have all that school traffic. It will facilitate the installation, and it also allows visitors to enjoy that enhanced public space during the summer months when it's the nicest to be outside. So that's our target. And then the pilot is anticipated to be in place for at least 12 months because we are getting federal funding for the pilot. They have requested that we have it up for 4 seasons to be able to have enough data collection to understand the changes in safety and user behavior coming out of that. But after we have a few months of observations from the pilot, we are anticipating moving into the preliminary design phase, winter of 25. And from there, you know, Karis can touch on the anticipated construction timeline, but that is still to be determined.
An additional question, how does this construction and the MBTA construction plans work together?
Yep. So as most of you know, the town is working with MBTA to implement a quiet zone at the at-grade rail crossing. So those design plans are further along than our project, but the timing actually works out perfectly that we are able to pilot the infrastructure changes that would be required for the quiet zone as part of our pilot demonstration. And then the full build of those infrastructure changes would be folded into the construction plans for our project.
Beautiful.
Sorry, I just, they may also have been asking about the MBTA zoning. I'm not sure if they were looking at one or the other, but I can just speak to the second part. So I think that's what they were looking for. So if the town passes the MBTA zone changes in the May town meeting, Great Plain Ave is not included as part of the MBTA zone. So there would be no proposed enhanced construction, at least in this corridor. And right now the town is not aware of any developers that were intending on developing that corridor, with the exception of the West Street. The current downtown is already zoned for 3-story multi-use properties. And someone could develop those properties. Again, we haven't heard of anyone who is interested in doing that. But it is possible that that could happen under our existing zoning.
Thank you, Karis. An additional question that we had is in regards to cost. What is the anticipated cost of this project?
Chris, do you want to touch on that? So, first for the pilot, that pilot implementation is being funded through the Safe Streets for All program. That is anticipated to be about $400,000. And then in terms of the full build construction, obviously it's very dependent on the design elements incorporated into the conceptual design. But Karis, I don't know if you want to give specific.
I mean, I guess I'll be as specific I can be. And Margot, certainly correct me. I think when we have conceptually thought about the cost of this project, we're thinking somewhere between, this is a big swing, but $10 and $20 million. And it really does depend the level of construction and change that we're proposing. If we need new signals, right, that's a completely different cost than if we maintain the signals that are currently there. So that's really why there's such a big breadth of expense. We are looking at 3 different funding options. Initially, we were anticipating funding the entire downtown work through accruing Chapter 90 resources, which is a state program where the state allocates money for infrastructure, roadway, and sidewalk improvement to municipalities. We're still going to be using a portion of the funding to supplement this work. The secondary funding is we will be recommending a portion of funds come from the town. What this will do, I think, to an advantage, is it puts this particular project on town meeting. So if we had utilized only Chapter 90 or grant resources, town meeting doesn't effectively have to vote on this project. But because we are looking at least a portion of it coming from the town, it will be an article on town meeting for debate. I think there had been some feedback before that town meeting wanted to have the opportunity to weigh in on this project, and this will enable them to do that. And then the third, we have charged Apex with an in-depth research of grant opportunities available to help supplement those other 2 funding resources. So that's where the funding is anticipated to come from.
Beautiful. And then I'm going to combine a couple of questions and kind of re-summarize a question that's been asked. How do we anticipate this will impact businesses? Specifically, will we ensure that or make accessible sidewalks during this process?
So I can talk a little bit for those businesses that were operating when we did the renovation in 2016 to 2019. It is a challenge in this particular corridor because the right of way in many places goes right up to the door of the business. And given that they're all active businesses, it is a challenge. One advantage of this particular project compared to the project before is because we are talking about some sort of widening of a non-vehicle zone. I think there's more opportunity to provide pedestrian access than there was when we had a very narrow area for pedestrians to go in. And I guess what I'm saying is in my vision, anything that is labeled bike lane or parklet or anything like that, when it comes to the construction process, is sort of on limits for diverting pedestrians around maybe some of the construction we're currently doing. So it is a tight location, and it's what makes this project really so expensive. But it is a project where we can have a little more flexibility because we are adjusting the right of way. The other thing I just want to mention, and it's likely we would do the same process, we did the vast majority of the construction for the initial phase in the overnight period. I think partially for business disruption, and also partially for just traffic disruption because this corridor has so much traffic going through it. I would anticipate we would also pursue the vast majority of construction overnight, which would basically mean that for pedestrian access to each building, we would just need to make sure that we leave the construction site in the morning in an area where it is free of obstruction for our people getting into all the businesses and getting to the businesses.
Thank you, Karis. Margot, can we advance to the Menti slide? Because I'm unable to see if there are questions that have come through there. Okay, so it looks like people are relying on the chat. So I'm going to, again, combine one because it's multi-tiered, but I think it works. How is or how will be the preferred conceptual design determined? And then with that, how do we ensure and plan that people have a reason to go to Needham Center?
Two great questions. You can chime in first, Karis.
Sure. So I'll say like on the town side. So again, we have a working group, and I'll say again, we have vacancies for a business owner and a business entity. So please feel free to reach out to the town manager's office if you want to be part of that decision-making process. We really want someone from those two areas to participate because we are looking to try to get buy-in. When we did the original project of modifying the signals, we did a pretty strong outreach campaign once we had sort of finalized concept to make sure that we had buy-in, and we would do the same here. Ultimately, it would be in this particular case, the select board, but also town meeting that would be voting on the appropriation for the project. So that would be the ultimate decider of what direction we go in. But we are using the feedback that we receive to help inform the decision-making of what the corridor looks like.
I just want to call out, Lise, thank you for mentioning there's a typo on the slide. We're not saying no questions from the audience. It's now questions from the audience. So apologies for that. It's the opposite of our intent.
It's just saying that once a question is provided through the slide, it'll pop up, and it just has us until there are questions. Yeah, thank you. Just wanted to give John a chance to speak. He's had his hand raised.
Hi, good morning, everybody. It's great to see this. I look forward to seeing the design as it unfolds. As a board member to the chamber, as a resident of Needham, and as a business owner in Needham, most of my focus is on what will the impact be, honestly, on the business community. I've always enjoyed the town center, and even with the new upgrades, I enjoy it more. And yeah, I'm at French Press every day, so I get it. I want to hit those stores and I want to hit those restaurants and cafes. I think it's really important that the bricks and mortar business owners be communicated with as often as possible and as I don't know, both succinctly, but as explicitly as possible. I think there are a lot of chamber members on the call here. A lot of the staff is on the call. And I think, Max and everyone else are good liaisons to the community. They're out there talking to the business community all the time. So I think trying to use us as much as possible to help you message. But I'm hoping there's a system that it's easy for bricks and mortar retailer businesses on the ground floor, on the ground plane during both the pilot and then eventually in the construction process, obviously can receive information, because it will impact them, frankly, the most out of all of us. Hopefully the impact in a general way would be great for all of us, but they stand the chance of having potential negative impact with temporary loss of parking or just people knowing, can they even walk in front of the stores? So all of those kinds of issues, it's really communicate, I think is critical. So I just want to put that point across, but thank you for your presentation today. It's very useful.
Thank you.
Can I unmute? Is that okay?
Yeah.
So this is Jerry. Are you planning to have a dedicated foreman for person on site every day? Because the key to these projects is that the contractors need to be watched and pushed and make sure the project is done to spec. And having that dedicated person on site that we as business people can go talk to, just on our end, as opposed to everybody walking down the street. That is tremendously important, that person is there. They come to us the week ahead of time, the month ahead of time, that you're going to be coming to your area, coming to your building. That is so important. So that's one comment that I have in question. The other thing is, no, you guys, it's going to be a fun project. I had asked about evaluating pilots. What is really the key to evaluating the pilots? And then my last question is, how do I raise my hand? I couldn't figure out how to raise my hand. Couldn't raise it. Thanks a lot.
Grace, you want to touch on the construction?
Yeah, so as far as construction management goes, the town will have, because of the scope of this project and the intensity of it, we will have a town representative on the project during construction. I think what might have been challenging the last time we did construction in the downtown is that person ends up working overnight. And so most businesses are not there overnight, they're there in the morning. So we'll just have to make sure there's continuity of information exchange. So there'll be somebody there during the day to provide that information. I also imagine it is very likely we will hire Apex to provide their own dedicated construction manager on site as well. So given this is, in a wonderful project, but probably the most challenging area for us to operate in because of the the volume of traffic, because of the right of way being so close to the buildings themselves. So we will have eyes on it. I'd also indicate that Apex, as part of their contract, is charged with maintaining a website for the town that should also have updates on it. And then we'll work to coordinate with them to make sure to push that information to businesses on a periodic basis. So I appreciate the reminder about how important it is.
I just want to add to that as well. Something that we consistently have found is that when we have a steady brand for a project, it allows for us to more consistently communicate with community members. So we are working with the town. We have JP as part of consistent meetings, and as well as Amy through the town manager office that help to facilitate and communicate. So that is very much something that we are constantly working on, is communication for this.
I just wanted to chime in on the pilot observation. So some of the main metrics that we will be measuring during the pilot is safety related metrics. So average travel speeds of vehicles, as well as traffic volumes, the frequency of any collisions that occur within the project limits, and the severity, as well as the amount of traffic by travel mode. So are we seeing an uptick in pedestrian and bicycle traffic with these new infrastructure measures in place. And as mentioned, we are also going to be monitoring how regional traffic is shifting. So we're identifying intersections where we think we'll see and may see an increase in traffic as part of the pilot, and we'll be measuring the volumes on those intersections as well. And I forget the third question.
How to raise your hand.
Oh,
it's under the React. It's under the React option. There's a button to raise your hand. We also have, I know we have a few people raising their hands. Again, I'm going to just combine. We have some questions regarding specifics. How long specifically will this, I assume it's the project pilot take? Will there be a loss of parking spaces? If so, how many? So we have some specifics that I think would be helpful to address.
In terms of the parking implications, we do not have a number of spaces impacted. That's part of the alternatives we're evaluating. And as soon as we have some plans that we're comfortable with sharing with different amount of parking impacts, we will certainly share those for feedback. We are definitely sensitive to the impact of parking loss on businesses and taking that into account. And then in terms of the timeline, as I mentioned, the pilot is going to be up for at least 12 months as part of the grant requirements. If it's going well, Karis, you can chime in. There's an opportunity to keep that temporary infrastructure up until the construction begins. There's really no reason to take it down if everyone's enjoying it.
Okay, so I think we are running out of time. Maybe one more question from Bill, and then also maybe just talk about the best way to contact you guys if there's any more questions.
Great.
I was wondering if there's a way to, as part of the project, to get people to the town center when it might be kind of crazy because you're eliminating travel lanes. We have a commuter rail that goes through town, but people don't think of using it for in-town travel. And I was wondering if maybe there's signage or some sort of communication strategy that can be used to encourage people to use that, and like publicizing the schedule, just the in-town schedule, forget the going to Boston stops, just focus on the in-town stops and, encourage people to take advantage of that. And maybe even, trying a pilot of an in-town bus service, that runs around the main roads and picks people up and brings them and drops them off in the center of town to encourage people to come to town and take advantage of what's there.
Great ideas.
Our hope is also that having safer bike accommodations will encourage the community to participate and go that route. We have heard consistently through the outreach events that there is very much a desire for people to be able to use their bikes to get through or to town destinations, and that they generally do not feel safe or accommodated to do so.
Right, but you're only changing a half a mile or 4/10 of a mile. Most people don't live in that 4/10 of a mile. So to get to town, they would have to drive their family across Great Plain Avenue from Hersey, say, down towards the town center, or from up by Newman down to the town center, and that's dangerous, So you don't have the ability with the pilot you're doing to get people to the town center on a bike in a safe way. As they're traveling through the town center, sure, but they have to get there, And we're not a West Roxbury kind of community, like we're an older community than West Roxbury in general.
So I think as far as I think it's a great thing to bring up, talking about what alternatives we have, particularly during the construction phase, to try to get people into the town center in a safe manner. Because again, the goal is not to make it harder for the businesses. The goal is ultimately to have a much better environment that will make it much easier for people to move around the town center, so that way they go to more businesses. We certainly can come up with alternative parking plans, walking routes, And then like, I think the recommendation of utilizing the public transit option internally to town while we're going through construction, both on the pilot and the general construction is an excellent idea.
Thank you guys. And can we pass along your contact info to the businesses if we need to? Okay, that'd be great. And have a great day, and we will send out the recording after. Thank you all for attending.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Everyone.
Thanks, everybody.